Hello everyone, I'm Mother.
And I'm Fucker.
And welcome to Read Receipts with Carly and Sam, our book-based podcast covering all the latest hits and some stories off the beaten path.
With a few fun and exclusive episodes mixed in between.
I really hope you clicked on this episode knowing what we were talking about, otherwise that is really confusing.
Otherwise that's gonna be like how did I get here? What is this podcast about? For all you new listeners.
Yeah. Actually, maybe back up. We are actually Carly and Sam, but
this is still a book-based podcast.
Yes, and of course we love referencing our books. That we are covering. Actually, before we get into talking a little bit more about what book we're covering, Sam, would you like to address the elephant in the room for those who are watching on YouTube?
Oh, visually?
Yes.
Are you speaking of my beautiful...
Your very fashionable, sensible choice of clothing for today. This Band-Aid on your face.
Thank you so much. My accessory?
Yes, your accessory.
Okay, so here's the thing. I have succumbed to the classic post-pubescent acne scarring. So, but
it's just acne?
Well, because I'm a millennial myself, I did not have or own or know where to get those very stylish pimple patches.
The stars.
Because I was like, oh, maybe I'll do that and like relate to our Gen Z audience. And I was like, I don't even know how to do that. So I did it the old fashioned way, the way we used to do it back in 2000, whatever.
Yeah.
Band-Aid.
The thing about those star ones is that I feel like they do not work nearly as well because
I agree.
The shape of the star is like, I don't know. I prefer to get the crap. I don't remember what the brand is called, but it's like a perfect circle. And it actually does like the hydrocortisol. I don't think it's hydrocortisol.
To be honest, I don't even really know what they do.
Well, it helps suck out like the pus from the zit.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So it actually does help like kind of eliminate the acne.
Yeah.
You still would have to deal with kind of the scarring after, but it helps alleviate like the pressure from it and stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's a delicate balance. Like you have to wait until like, something could actually come out.
Sure.
But they can be really helpful. But yeah, I feel like the star ones, they're cute, but in my opinion, they do not work very well.
Good to know.
As someone with PCOS and has dealt with her fair share of acne, this is my hot take, I guess. Not really that hot take.
Well, also good to know. I probably should have consulted you beforehand. I'm going to say this, and I know our audience is going to be like, okay, good for you. I don't really get acne.
Whoopsie freaking do, Sam. I have 3 zits as we speak.
It just doesn't really happen to me. Listen, I am the victim here.
We are all victims to our hormones.
I feel like that's why when it happens to me, I'm like, what do I do? Like, do I put, like, where do you get the pimple patches? How often do I wash my face?
They're
like,
just
do
at
I need
Target. We'll go to Target later.
Yeah.
For one last time in these book club episodes, welcome back to the summer of love. Ooh! We are so sad that this incredible summer of love is coming to an end, but we couldn't be more excited to be ending on such a high note with
honestly
a romance featuring a little bit of magic. The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. Shit, we forgot to look this up.
I think we've done this the last like 3 episodes or something where we'll like mention this book and we did not.
I didn't even think about it till literally in that moment.
Till just now, when you had to say it. Yeah, no, I also didn't think about it for this episode specifically. I was like, oh wait.
Sorry, girl.
We still don't know how to say her name.
Poston.
Say both just in case.
Yeah, just in case she's one of them, for sure. I don't think there's any third alternative it could be.
Probably not. I mean, we'll see.
Well, actually, both are O's. Poston.
Yeah, those are both
Poston. Poston. One of those had to have been right.
One of the, yeah. You know what? We loved it, girl. We can't get your name right, but we loved your writing.
Look, we will learn your name because odds are we're going to be coming back to your books.
Yes, no, because we absolutely enjoyed it. We love romance, obviously.
That's how we got here.
And we love magic. So, like, why not have a little bit of both?
Yes, truly perfect combo for us.
Yes. We, really, really enjoyed this book. Mm-hmm. I mean, even, pre-recording, we were talking about it, and we were like, okay, we need to save this for the pod. Because, we loved it.
Yeah, it really had everything. It was kind of like a perfect book, I felt like.
Yes. Yeah. It was so good. I want to talk more about what we liked about it and our summaries and our ratings and all of that. But of course, before we get into that, we want to say our overall spoiler warning because, again, this is still a book-based podcast. So that means we'll be diving in pretty deep with some character backstories, plot lines, things like that, which means that if you haven't read the book and you really want to, pause right here, go give it a quick read, and then come back and dish with all of the spoilers included with us. You've been warned.
You've been warned. Now, if you haven't read the book, before you bounce, if you would like to, I am about to read the back of the book summary, both as like a little refresher for everyone who has listened, but also for you all if, you're intrigued and want to hear a little bit more about what this book is about. Mm-hmm. This is the back of the book summary. Sometimes the worst day of your life happens, and you have to figure out how to live after it. For Clementine West, that means burying her head in her work as a book publicist, being practical, and forgetting the silly things her beloved aunt Analea taught her, like living wide and chasing the moon. Clementine would rather stay grounded and keep her heart safe. For the last 6 months, she's done just that. But when she moves into her late aunt's apartment and finds a strange man standing in the kitchen, a man with kind eyes, a southern drawl, and a taste for lemon pies, her well-laid plans begin to fall apart. Because he's the type of man who, before it all, she would have fallen head over heels for, and she still might. Except, he exists in the past, 7 years in the past to be exact, and she quite literally lives 7 years in his future. Her aunt always said the apartment was a pinch in time, a place where moments blended like watercolors. She also said that love is never a matter of time, but a matter of timing. And Clementine fears she may be 7 years too late.
Even the back of the book summary is good.
I know!
Now that we've read kind of the back of the book summary, reminded some of our friends about, what exactly happens in the book, and maybe spiked some interest with some of our friends who haven't read it yet, let's go through our list of characters because we had some pretty interesting faces meet us along the way throughout this whole book. So we've got our main girl, Clementine, aka Lemon. Mm-hmm. We loved her, and we loved the nickname. And I know It's not like a self-proclaimed nickname, but absolutely loved it. I thought it was so cute.
Truly. Honestly, I feel like nicknames could be one of those things that, especially in a book, it can be a point where it could get really cringe. Like, it feels unnecessary and unnatural, but I felt like it was really perfect. Especially to the fact that her name is a food, and it stayed a food in the nickname. And, her name was actually long and made sense to turn into a nickname. Yeah. So...
we loved it. Cute. Then we also have the man himself who gave her the nickname Ewan / James. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The very popular chef.
Aunt Analea. So her aunt. Mm-hmm. Aunt.
Whichever.
We have Drew and Fiona, Clementine's friends. Uh-huh. And then we also have Marcus and his wife's name.
I didn't bother to write down
friends. We have to mention his friends, too.
That's fair.
He's also got
They
friends.
do end up kind of playing a part, so...
We've got Clementine's parents, who also play a part. And then we've got James's parent, Vera.
Uh-huh. Big plot twist at the end.
Big plot twist.
Yeah, his mom and also Aunt Annalie's lover, to say? Yeah. So she plays a big role in everyone's lives there as well. Yeah. Let's first talk about how we felt about the book.
Overall.
Yes,
okay, yes.
And our ratings. So Sam, how did you feel about this book?
I really liked it. If I haven't said that enough, I absolutely loved it. I thought that the concept was very interesting. This whole magical realism situation where obviously everything is based in reality, but there's the magical concept of what happens in this apartment, right? What happens in this apartment kind of stays in this apartment as well. I thought that was really unique to the genre, bringing that element of kind of fantasy into it while still maintaining the kind of lighthearted environment that we love about romance books. I also thought that the author, Ashley,
our girl,
handled it really well. I thought that just because it's a romance and then there's this magical concept to it, that, once the magical concept is resolved, right? Our main character is meeting our other main character 7 years in the past. Once they meet 7 years in the future in their current time, it's story over, right? Everything everything is settled, everything is tied up nice and neat, but that is not the case. And I really like that Ashley handled it that way as well. Aside from that, there are other like life lessons with regards to like romance, and then obviously changing over the course of 7 years, and this death that we have from her aunt. So a lot of things that Clementine has to kind of handle. And I think the way that it's written is also something that you, if you're going through these difficult times or can somehow relate to what Clementine is going through, it feels very much like you could use it in your own life as well, or you could at least learn something from what Clementine is going through. And then, of course, like we talked about in the beginning, it's a romance book. There's a lot of romance in it, and it was a great addition to the Summer of Love, with what we're looking for being like really fun, lighthearted, heartwarming romance. So I loved it. I give it 5 stars.
Wow.
I know.
The second 5-star rating on this pod.
No. Yes. 2 5-star ratings in 1 year for me is like unheard of.
I'm starting to question, maybe you are a bit more optimistic of a rater than you realize.
It's crazy. But I'm excited to obviously talk about it here on the pod with you, and then also get into like more of her books, more of Ashley's books.
Yes, 100%. I agree. I also rated it 5 stars because I just loved everything about this book. I loved the romance. I can't really pinpoint exactly what I loved about Clementine and Ewan's romance, but it was just so good and so charming. I did feel like they had such a good chemistry and connection with each other, and I think the magical realism aspect to it was just perfect of like, you know, there's this quirky little magical thing that happens in this apartment, and like, you know, we didn't dig into like why it's happening and stuff. You know, I feel like there is a bit of that tendency when you're in fantasy world, sort of, that like you want to know the why. But I kind of love that. It was just like, this is just a quick little plot device, you know, we're not thinking too hard about it. It's just like, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And I thought that it was so interesting, and I thought there was so much nuance to this story that could have been very straightforward and just like hee hee ha ha, but it wasn't. There was so much more to it with the aspect of her aunt's passing, and also all these other personal things going on in Clementine's life. Like, clearly she's kind of in a bit of a rut with where she is in her career as well, kind of connecting with herself again with her art. And also there's a lot of analysis too about the way that her parents kind of are, and sort of trying to consciously not always fit into the same mold that they subscribe to. Yeah, I just thought it was so well done. I see this book constantly on like people's top 10 books or whatever.
Sure.
Especially people, they aren't necessarily like romance readers. So I was a little skeptical of like, am I going to like this book as much as everyone says that they like it? But I 100% get it. I am so on this hype train. I would love for this book to be a movie. I just think it gives such 2000s rom-com vibes to me. Like, it immediately makes me think of like 13 Going on 30 with the whole like time change and stuff like that. So it just feels, I just loved it so much. It's so good. Like, I feel like I could reread this book over and over again. That's how much I like it.
Same. Obviously, double 5 stars. What more can you say?
Double 5 stars.
What more can you say?
Perfect score. Slam dunk. So with that all being said, let's start actually talking about this book, because obviously we have a lot to say with how much we love it. Let's go ahead and start how this book begins, because very quickly we kind of jump into Clementine and Ewan meeting each other. Actually, sorry, I do want to take one step back, because I think just the chapter before this, we have where Clementine is at James Ashton's restaurant.
Yes.
And she runs into him for a second, and he's even literally delivering the lemon pie to that table when she was originally with Drew and Fiona. And did you think when you saw him, it's weird that we were making a bit of significance about like, oh, like she kind of was like, oh, he has a chest, basically.
Yes. Well, okay, so obviously during that lunch, I think it was a lunch, they had talked a little bit about her ex-boyfriend, and they kind of talk about Clementine's, you know, resistance to dating and falling in love and blah, blah, blah. And so I did think it was significant that she ran into him and, like, obviously makes note of how attractive he is and all of that. But I did not think that he would play significance into the rest of the book. I don't know what I thought. I thought maybe it was just like a fling or something. I didn't think that much of it. Because obviously in romance books like this, this, you don't really put that much of a heavy emphasis on little details. Not the same way you would in, say, like a mystery thriller or even a fantasy book.
Yeah, I definitely thought at first this does feel like a lot of detail for something that seems like it's just going to be a moment of time. Like, I don't see how it's going to come back.
Yes.
I initially thought maybe this is supposed to be because, like you said, she was just talking about her ex and then, like, seeing this guy now. I was like, maybe this is her kind of realizing that she does want to meet someone new, sort of thing. And then she was going to meet whoever. I will say that once Clementine and Ewan meet, and he mentioned something about being a chef. I was like, hold up.
No, same.
Hold up.
I thought the exact same thing. And I think I made a note of it where I was like, is this the chef?
Yeah, I was literally like, he's a chef?
Is this the chef?
Interesting.
Come on.
I will say, when later on, at some point, she eventually leaves this timeline, goes back to her present timeline, and she tries to search for him, and she doesn't find him. I was a little bit convinced. I'm like, okay, I guess it wasn't him.
I wasn't really, because she didn't even get his last name.
That is fair.
So I thought, okay.
But if Ewan is such a specific name that I was like, surely that
is
stand out
true.
somewhere.
That is true. But then it does make sense that he doesn't really go by Ewan. Like, he goes by James in a professional manner.
Yeah.
So, and I have run into people here and there that do go by different names depending on, like, the situation that they're in, whether it's, like, family versus friends versus professional, you know? So I thought that it was possible that he just went by a different name or changed his name. Or I also thought that it was possible that he made up a name. I don't know why he would do that, but I was like, maybe
it is a very weird name.
Their relationship, you know, when they first meet, started off kind of rocky. Maybe he was like, I don't want to give this girl my real name. Like, she's crazy or something, you know?
Right.
So I thought maybe, like, maybe he gave her a fake name.
Yeah, that would have made sense, honestly. But they kind of bridge that gap, start to actually get to know each other. I think it makes a lot of sense that they would come together because of the fact that, in a way, cooking can be an art. And it definitely feels like he views cooking as an art. He sees the passionate love that can exist in cooking. And obviously, she is an artist. She, in that moment, is not as connected to her art as she would like to be. But I think she definitely sees and respects that side of him and the way that he talks about his food. And it is just so cute. It's just like, you get it. As soon as like he starts talking, it's like, I see it. I see why you would like him. Yeah. And honestly, he sounded very hot too. He has tattoos and like auburn hair and things like that. It's just like, okay. I'm in. I get it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's attractive anytime anybody talks about something that they're very passionate about. And you can definitely tell in the book during the times that Ewan is telling her about his passion for cooking and for food that he is passionate about it, that he really enjoys it, and like it has a connection to his past.
Yes, that too.
And his like family, but he has also found his own kind of like love for it, I guess.
Right. I think it's so funny that she ends up getting nicknamed Lemon. And we find out that there is a very specific significance about lemon pies to him and like his grandpa. Yeah. And it's funny because obviously throughout this book, lemon pies show up quite a bit. And so every time like at his restaurant there's a lemon pie, I'm like, oh my God, it's because of her. And then it's like, it's for family reasons. Actually, it's not quite that romantic. But I do think there is something to say that like he clearly loved and adored his grandpa so much. Mm-hmm. And that is the connection that lemon pies meant to him. And then like, you know, now he has lemon in his life and that's his new love. And I think that there is something about like what those loves mean to him. Like clearly they are of high significance to him. Yeah. So I thought that was really cute. Yeah. And then the second that, like, you know, she leaves the apartment and then she comes back and he's not there, I just immediately was like, no, bring her back.
Disappointment.
Yeah. Did you ever pick up on, she would talk about the apartment must not want me. Like, I only need to be there when, like, it thinks that I need to be there sort of thing. Like, it felt very, like, a fate situation. Yes. But I wasn't really picking up on a whole lot of messaging of, like, why at certain times the apartment would bring her to Ewan. Did you necessarily read anything into that?
I can't really remember anything specific, but it kind of felt like in the very beginning it was an initial meeting. Like she needs a change in her life, not just career-wise, but also personally she's going through a lot. Mm-hmm. So it felt like the apartment is bringing her someone who can show her a different perspective on things. So that initial meeting kind of made sense to me. And then I think maybe the next couple in the middle there somewhere, again, I can't really remember, but those kind of felt like they were happening after they get the book proposal or decide that they're going to put their hat in the ring, so to speak, for James Ashton's newest book.
Right.
So that also kind of made sense to me because of the stark difference between who James is now and who Ewan was when she first met him.
Right.
And for her to kind of understand that 7 years is a long time and change needs to happen, which is kind of an overarching, and we can talk about this again a little bit later, it's kind of an overarching theme when it comes to her aunt, who is kind of like in and out throughout the entire book, and her aunt's sort of reaction to change. And kind of going through how Clementine views change, and maybe the apartment telling her that, hey, this is a change, you meeting Ewan, but also you meeting James is another change. And 7 years is a long time, and people do change.
Right.
And maybe that's not necessarily a bad thing. And I felt like a lot of their meetings in the middle were kind of surrounding that. And then obviously she gets attached, and then the meeting at the end is kind of this process of letting go, I think. Well, I think it's more understated, I guess, like the reasoning behind, like, the apartment is sending me here for a reason.
Yeah.
I think it has to be more of like a literary analysis, like an AP Lit class.
Yeah. Someone else can let us know what those deeper meetings are. We did not get that deep into it.
Yeah.
But with that, let's go ahead and kind of shift to the middle of the book. More specifically, I feel like the big game changer is when she meets James Ashton. Because, oh my God, when that happened, I immediately was like, shit. Like, it's him. Like, I was just freaking out. I was like, finally, we
But were you also freaking out, like, what is he gonna say?
Yes, I was a little bit like, does he? Because 7 years is a long time.
Does he remember her? Yes,
like,
exactly.
Of course, like, she's gonna pick up on that is him because
it hasn't been 7 years for her.
Right, it's been like a month maybe at most. So of course she's gonna recognize and remember him. But yeah, who knows how much this sort of moment in time meant to him? Especially from her perspective, it's like he's already lived through the entire summer that she has yet to experience.
Yes.
So it's hard to say like what exactly is going to happen for her, that like is it enough to stick out to him?
Yes.
So yeah, I definitely was a little bit like, yeah, I don't know, he might not remember her. I was kind of worried that was going to be a bit more of the challenge.
Yeah.
Was like, oh, I am obsessed with this dude, but like he doesn't even really remember me. Stuff like that, almost like starting from scratch.
That all felt very relatable to like just like dating. Mm-hmm. Like, it just felt very relatable for her to be like, well, what if, like, those dinners didn't mean anything to him? Like, what if he doesn't think about me the same way I think about him? Like, all of this, like, going on in her mind. And then her, like, Instagram stalking where she's like, well, you know, these are his, like, ex-girlfriends or, like, ex-flings, like, all of these other women in his pictures. And he's, like, you know, gallivanting around the world. He's, like, taking these women everywhere, and they're so beautiful, and I'm not like them. And, like, all the, just, like, that whole process as like someone who has obviously like been in the dating scene, like it was so relatable for her to be like spiraling I guess about this and being like, is he gonna remember me, like do I even matter?
Right, because like when she met him, he's just some dude who
he's
likes
just some
cooking,
guy,
and now he's basically a celebrity. It's truly kind of like 13 going on 30, except like in the reverse. So yeah, it does definitely change things. Like when you see him with all these like supermodel-esque people, it's just like, I'm just some girl.
I'm just a girl that
what
he
am I
like
gonna do?
Had dinner with a couple times in my aunt's apartment. Like he's not gonna remember me. Yeah.
But when they get to the end of the meeting and he said, "It was good to see you again, Lemon," I
screamed.
Yes,
I screamed.
I was at work listening to it and I gasped. I was taken out. I had to pause. I had to gather myself. Like, shook me to my core. I don't think I've ever had such a standout moment in one of these romance books. When it's like, he does remember me.
He remembers her. Yeah, and it's as much of a shock to her as it is to us, and I love that we're experiencing it kind of in real time the same way she's experiencing it.
Yeah.
Of like, we don't know until he says that to her, you know?
Yeah, and then it's like freaking the fuck out.
Yes.
And then of course, because of this whole publishing issue, that definitely like, now it's like, ah, shit. Now this is complicating the relationship even further. there's kind of like professional lines that are sort of expected to be kept.
Yeah.
So,
but regardless, I mean, it was so like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he remembers her. And then also like the way he says it, kind of hot.
Yes.
I'm not gonna lie.
Yes.
I was like, that's hot.
It was really hot.
Because he like walks past her, like, and like
feels like he
leans
just
down. He like says it into her ear.
Yes.
And he's like, it was really nice seeing you again, Lemon. And I was like, literally
kicking and screaming
right now. Like, I'm fanning myself.
Yes.
That is so hot.
It's crazy. Honestly, this could have been a 2-part series, and if it stopped there, I'd have been like, oh my god.
Yeah.
What a great ending. Oh my god. So that was crazy.
Yeah.
I love how I can't remember now if it was in the same meeting or if it's in another meeting after that when it comes to like the book publishing, that they go not on exactly a date, but they go to the food truck together.
Yes.
Get a little bit more perspective of how he feels about her / felt about her in the moment. Then the friends start talking about all these girls that he used to be with. And then they're like, oh yeah, there's that one girl, like when you first moved here.
You never really got over that one
You
girl.
never really got over her. You were so obsessed with her. It's like,
okay.
wonder who that was. And also the fact that he introduces her as Lemon, just like, so
I thought
cute.
that was so adorable. The fact that he's introducing this girl to his friends, like, by an affectionate nickname, not like by her like full name or anything like that. Oh, like, this is Lemon.
Yeah.
I thought that was adorable.
No explanation needed.
Yeah, I thought that was adorable.
Yeah, it was so cute. And I love that little peek into the window of like what he was thinking in that moment. But then we go back to the apartment and get to see Ewan again. And this is kind of when I think she is starting to notice more of the differences, and also is a little bit more like, well, now what do I do? And there's the moment when they're having such a good time. They're so excited to see each other again. And he's like, let's go somewhere together.
Oh,
and
that broke my heart.
In her mind, she knows that like, well, she's like, I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I don't
know if we can do this.
But yeah, she's like, I don't know what's going to happen, but I don't think we can do this, but I want to try.
And together in the way that, like, I mean, obviously she recognizes James and James recognizes her, but they're not really able to be together the way that they were able to be together in the apartment, in the now present, right? 7 years in the future. So 7 years in the past, it's also her, I'm assuming, really just wanting to have this time where she can be with him kind of uninhibited and really like have these feelings
full
and enjoy
comfort.
his energy, you know?
And then he opens the door. And then
so excited to leave with her, and then she's kind of like thrown back into her present,
which is so crazy. I can't imagine what that looked like for both of them, basically. Yeah. Oh my god, I was so hopeful that I was like, maybe it will work out. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and then they do address it even like in the future, I think much later, the next time that they meet, that he had like thought like, I thought you like disappeared. Like, what happened?
Yeah,
like, are you a ghost?
I mean, truly, because she knows like what's going on. He does not yet know.
I just can't imagine what that must have been like on his side, because he again doesn't see her again in the apartment until like much later. It's not just like the next day,
right?
It's later,
at least a few weeks.
So he must be like, I don't know what is going on. Like, he must be out of his mind. Like, what happened?
Yeah. So with that, we do get to see James, Ashton, Ewan in the cooking environment where, you know, I think Clementine was really excited because obviously from her perspective, she's really excited that Ewan's dreams came true and wants to see him in his element, get to see him doing what he loves. And I think this is especially the first time that she is like, oh, this is not exactly like the charming guy that I saw in the apartment. He's a little bit more quiet. He's not really talking too much. And it doesn't feel like him to her, which of course, I mean, I feel like the situation itself also is a little bit different. Like, sure, in some ways he's schmoozing these people, but also he does have the upper hand. These people really need to be schmoozing him more. So like on one hand, you know, I do feel like it's not 100% his fault in that specific situation. But, I mean, yeah, it kind of does make sense that he is really passionate about these dreams because he hasn't achieved those dreams yet, whereas this James has achieved a lot of those dreams. So he is going to be different. Like, he is still passionate, but it's not a dreaming sort of passion in the way that, like, you hope that something will happen. Like, he's already there, and he already has so much experience. But obviously it just reads very different to her.
I also think it maybe in part is the post achieving a dream veil lifted. I think when you have a dream and you talk about how passionate you are to achieve it, to get to this place where you are, say, a professional chef, it is in your mind bigger and better than anything could ever be because you haven't achieved it yet.
Right.
You know? So you can only imagine how good that must be to be a professional chef, how good your life must be, how like happy you are to be living it. But then there is always that post, I've achieved this dream, now what, veil lifted of, well, now that I'm here, like, where do I go? What sacrifices have I made? What kind of route do I want to take now with being a professional chef? Do I want to stay here? Do I want to open my own restaurant?
Right.
Like, there is a lot of, again, just like natural growing, like we've said, over the course of 7 years. But I also think that because maybe things have unfolded a little bit differently and maybe you are now at this point where the dream, quote unquote, has been achieved, you have to approach moving forward from there a little bit differently than when, like we said, he didn't have that.
Yeah, not to mention the dream itself very well could have not exactly been what he thought of. Because usually when we're sort of dreaming of these things, we're definitely idealizing. We are not thinking of the cons that come with it. So now that he is living it and living through that, like, I'm sure that there are negative things that he, you know, it's not exactly going to be all hunky-dory, just like, oh, yes, I'm living the best life.
Right.
Like, there are always going to be negative consequences, even when it's like, yes, this is exactly what I wanted.
Right.
There are some take-back. Even though James didn't necessarily say or express that exactly, I think that there is kind of an assumption in my mind that there is probably some of that in the back of his mind. Although now that I'm thinking about it, like, we do know that his grandpa passes away in between those 7 years. I don't remember now if there was a specific story, if he got to be there and stuff like that. It
happened, if I'm remembering correctly, right after that summer that they spent together in the apartment. So it was a while ago. But I remember there was some mention of the fact that his grandfather never got to see his dreams fulfilled.
Right. And it did feel like they weren't together in on it, but like the specific goal being to work at the restaurant that his grandfather loved so much. Mm-hmm. It would have been so nice to be able to share that excitement in that moment with him.
Well, then it's also from Clementine's perspective, right? Of, are you doing this just for your grandfather now? Because he never got to see you live out these dreams that were also his dreams, right? Are you working so hard to become this well-renowned chef at this restaurant that your grandfather loves so much for you or for him? Are you opening up this restaurant for you or for him? And I don't know if you, while you were reading, did you ever think that he was going to have this sort of realization or speech in some sort of way to Clementine that was admitting that he was doing it wrong and like admitting that, oh, you're right, like I'm a different person now and I was much better back in the past? Like, did you expect that to happen at all?
I did kind of expect something like that. Okay. Maybe not a full give-in to that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But honestly, not even just like living his grandpa's expectations. I felt like another element that could have been clouding him was also the expectations of the industry.
Yeah.
I do think that they're probably, for instance, I think the biggest one being like the restaurant. It had like the poor lighting and the bad seating, and it just felt like really washed out and bright and stuff like that. And especially, I mean, that is certainly a style, but especially compared to his original dream of it being like red and cozy and things like that.
Yeah.
It was a big change. And so I was thinking that maybe he felt a lot of pressure in sort of like those design elements and things like that from this expectation that I feel like is really prevalent in a lot of places nowadays where everything is millennial gray and we have the weird like metal chairs that are everywhere that are really light but they're cold and horrible to sit in, that like those things are so devoid of character. And so it does suck when you see that in an establishment that it's like you could have done anything with this and instead you went with like the most appeasing option, and it's like, fuck that, this is your restaurant, do what you want. So I did think that he would have had a bit of a confession of like, you know what, actually you were right. But I did like that he did hold his ground because I do think, it makes a lot of sense. I'm just not that person anymore. And that doesn't mean that like this version of me is bad.
Yeah. I did think it was interesting. I mean, aside from, like what you were saying stylistically and industry standards, and then also on top of that, these dreams stemming from the relationship that he had with his grandfather. Are these your grandfather's dreams? Are these your dreams? It gets a little bit complicated there. I understand where Clementine is coming from, and it's easy as the reader, because this entire book is in Clementine's perspective. It's easy as the reader to think that she has the right perspective, right? That makes sense. James should 100% cave. He's like, it's crazy that he's a completely different person.
It's so clear that he's being affected by his grandpa.
Right, exactly. But then for him to, like you said, kind of stand his ground, I thought that was very interesting, and at least for me, very eye-opening to realize that, okay, we have to remember that this is just Clementine's perspective, and that her perspective is the only one that we're getting, but that doesn't mean that it's the right one.
Unreliable narrator.
Yes.
It always throws me.
Yes, and I thought it is interesting to see James hold his ground and sort of say, no, like, just because I am a different person now, I've learned, I've grown, I've changed, doesn't mean that I am worse off, or that I'm not doing this because I don't love this anymore. I'm still very passionate about my job. It just looks a little bit different.
Yeah.
And
of course that makes sense, because like I said earlier, I feel like your passions just change over time. Because think about, if anyone has a passion, when you're first getting into it, that is when you're the most excited about it.
Right.
Because you're just discovering it, and you're just discovering how much you like it. And then with
you're
time,
bogged down with the hardships of life.
Yes, naturally. At some point, it probably will get a little bit monotonous. And, there are going to be nuances to it that you didn't really think about when you were first getting into it. That's always going to happen with anything that you get into. And so it just makes sense that it's I do still care about it. It just looks a little different now, because, of course, I'm not the new to this whole thing boy that it's oh my God, this is so cool.
He has more experience now.
Yeah, he's been in it. He's been cooking now. At a certain point, what you do is going to feel a little bit like a job, even if you love it.
Yeah.
I think there's always going to be those admin type things, or those little things here and there. It's it's not your favorite part of the job.
Passion also portrays itself a little bit differently when you've done something for so long. You don't talk about it 24/7 as much anymore, because you're more used to it.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of the same way that I feel like when you've been in a long relationship with someone, when it's a budding romance, you're all excited and stuff, but as time goes on, the love is definitely different, but it doesn't mean that it's not still there. It just has taken a different shape. You guys have learned from each other more. You guys maybe in some ways don't like each other in certain spots, but also you've learned to love them through that. So
in some ways you don't like each other, and maybe it is time for a change. And did you ever consider that maybe that's where Clementine is coming from? Because now that we're talking about it, it kind of seems was there sort of a projection maybe on her part?
I honestly didn't think about that, but that probably is.
I'm just now thinking about it.
Yeah,
that
she probably was feeling so much that way herself in her own job, because for so long now she's been doing the same thing. And especially, I feel like there's a lot of voices in her head about, you're going to be the next so-and-so.
Yeah.
And you're going to take over this position.
You're so good at this job. I'm putting you up for this big promotion.
Right. And so with all that, I feel like there comes the second guessing of well, this is what everyone expects of me, but is that what I want? And
I'm good at it. So should I just keep doing it because I'm so good at it?
Yeah. That honestly does make a lot of sense, that she probably is more questioning it, because she's I know you would feel this way, because she feels that way.
Yes. Yeah.
But it is very different for him.
I think through all of this, obviously it's difficult for Clementine to realize that Ewan from 7 years past and James from 7 years future are two different people, but I do think she eventually starts to realize it, and then, eventually starts to realize that maybe she is projecting a little bit. She decides to quit her job, maybe try something new, and then we have the bittersweet letting go. And again, I think we maybe mentioned this earlier in the pod, how this aspect of change has kind of been ebbing and flowing throughout the whole book. Mm-hmm. And I think this part is kind of when she realizes that this change is something that she needs to accept, or at least start to accept. And she lets go of this idea of Ewan when they say their whole goodbye situation.
Yes, which that whole interaction was so
broke my heart.
Bittersweet, because obviously she's gonna see him again, but not this version.
Yeah.
Which is so sad. But she tells him about the apartment magic and like explains that whole situation.
Thank goodness, because he was probably like, what is going... I think he had even said, he was like, are you a ghost? Like, what is happening?
Because like how do you explain the fact that the last time they saw each other, she just disappeared?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so
yeah.
Thank goodness that got explained. But it's also, man, it is just, there's so much to it because she also knows that like the day that this is happening is the day that he's moving out and that her aunt is coming back. And she also remembers that he is the guy in the car.
He's the guy in the car.
That she talked to about book publishing that decided that she would do book publishing. Like, it was kind of... I don't know if she necessarily would have done it without him or like if that was really that much of a factor, but it does feel like his support helped affirm that trajectory.
But then isn't it just her helping herself? Right? Because he knows that this is something that she is doing with her life and that she is currently passionate about, but he only knows because she told him.
Yes.
So, like, is it also kind of just, like, in a weird roundabout way, her helping herself?
Kind of. And also, like...
Time travel? I don't know.
I don't think he knows this either, but in some ways, by him reaffirming that she should pursue publishing, he's kind of ensuring that in 7 years they're going to meet again, because that is the way that they basically do come back together, is because
so many like little twists and like connections.
Yeah, their lives are so intertwined that it just feels like it is inevitable, and it's crazy.
But also imagine like being Ewan in that moment, like leaving this woman that you're in love with, right? Like 7 years in the future, Clementine, this woman that he's in love with, and then leaving the apartment, going outside, getting in a cab, and having 7 years in the past Clementine get into his cab and not have any idea who he is.
It is so crazy.
Like,
that is a fact. Like, we truly will never get to know what exactly that feeling is like, because magic is not real,
obviously. But I can't imagine, like, I feel like if it were me, I would want so badly to, like, say something and, like, be in that comfort, but obviously I can't, and you don't know me, and, like, how heartbreaking that must feel to, like, look into the eyes of a woman that he loves and have her not look at him the same way.
Yeah.
Like, not recognize him.
So crazy.
Oh, my God.
It kind of makes me think about how, like, whenever I had my dog, like, sometimes I would think about, like, I wonder what she was like as a puppy, and, like, all that stuff. And so, like, how kind of, in some ways, it's, like, sad, but also kind of cool that, like, he gets a little bit of a window, and, like, this was her at the very beginning of that journey. It can be sad, but it also can be kind of sweet that he gets to see her in that way.
I can't imagine how hard that must be. And then also for like 7 years in the future, Clementine letting him go and saying, you know, don't look for me. Like, you will find me later. We will meet each other again, but you have to go on your own journey for 7 years, and I have to go on my own journey for 7 years, and those paths can't cross before they're ready to cross. Yeah. And like, for her to be strong enough to say that to him, I also think is like, oh my God.
That is, that is incredibly tough.
Yeah.
It is kind of easier for her, right? Because she's already, like, she gets to be in the present where she gets to go see James.
Sure.
But he has to live for 7 years without her.
Years. Like, that is so tough. Like, knowing that, like, this person, love of your life, but you, like, can't be with them for 7 years.
That's so long.
That's such a long time.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, thank God he really made a good use of that time. He got Michelin stars and stuff like that. But yeah.
Like, I mean, the whole thing was heartbreaking, but, like, beautifully written. Like, so poignant.
We do get, he finds her on her birthday because she has this ritual where she goes to the museum on her birthday and just sits there, which is so cute. And how he talks about how every year he wanted to see if maybe he could...
like what we were saying, right? It's so tough for him, 7 years.
Yeah, like he has to stay away, but it's so tempting, especially when you know that, like, there's a guaranteed day
she's
every
gonna
year
be there,
where you know where she's gonna be. It's like, oh God. So that is so tough, but it's so sweet that he does show up.
It was sweet.
So there's one more big element that happened in our sort of final scenes of the book that feels kind of crazy not to mention, even though technically we didn't get to see exactly what happened. But
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, Clementine's very aware, like I said earlier, of what day it is and that
Yes.
Ewan's leaving because her aunt is coming back.
Yeah.
And she tries to kind of, I don't know exactly if she was hoping to miss her or what she was planning on, but either way, she ends up staying in the apartment long enough that her aunt does come back in.
Yeah.
Which is just so like, oh.
Yeah.
I can't imagine knowing how much she clearly loved her.
Of course, yeah.
And like how much she looked up to her and felt about her, seeing her again. And on top of that, I mean, there's so much to get into with Annalie. I think it's only fitting that we end this episode talking about her when her presence was so felt throughout this book.
Oh, of course, yeah. She was really the ghost kind of.
Yes, if there was a ghost, it was her.
But oh man, like being Clementine and like having your aunt walk in, her knowing what's happening in the apartment, right? Her seeing Clementine and knowing like, oh,
she
like,
knows.
I know what's going on here.
Yeah.
There's a lot there to unpack, and part of me wishes that we had gotten it, because of course, you know, we don't in the book, we don't really get to see how that plays out. There is something, I guess, surreal about not getting it and knowing that it was a beautiful moment between the two of them that we're not privy to.
Yeah.
You know?
It definitely makes sense that it feels like a very personal and private moment for them.
Yeah.
That we wouldn't get to know. But because there's so much surrounding her, there's so many questions that are in my mind about, like, did they talk about this? Did they talk about that?
Yeah.
For instance, from Annalia's perspective, obviously she understands that, like, oh, this must be my niece from the future.
Yeah.
But with that, it's like, but why is she here?
Yeah.
And so it is so difficult to, like, you know, is she aware of, like, is she just visiting? I mean, from her perspective, yeah, maybe she's just visiting the apartment.
Right.
But, you know.
I have a theory, though, that you have to live there to be able to travel.
That would make
back.
sense.
But, like, is that just, you know, like, my theory? Does Annalea know that? Or, like, does she have an inkling of, like, is this why? Yeah, it's just so many things, right? Like, what did they talk about? What could have come up?
I assume that Clementine probably wouldn't have brought up anything that crazy, because obviously it's like, you don't want to taint your last experience that you could have with her with talking about so much of the negative. Like, this is kind of your opportunity, if anything, because she definitely did express earlier on in the book a bit of remorse about, you know, her last conversation with her. And I think in general, when you know someone who has died by suicide, there's always going to be that more specific regret about you could have done more. Mm-hmm. So I think that that probably would have powered her through a lot to, you know, sort of rectify anything that she felt there.
I don't think she would have said anything, because I think she, like you mentioned, would have wanted to just preserve this last moment. This moment that she knows is most likely the last time she's ever going to see her aunt. You know, I imagine that they're probably just talking very broadly about each other's lives. What was this last trip? Like, did you have fun? Where are you going to next? Like, I'm sure it was probably kept at that surface level. And for some reason, I can imagine that Annalea probably wanted to keep it that way as well, just because she wouldn't have wanted any sort of, like, heartbreak or change to kind of come up and have to, like, think about that or worry about that. Because as we know, she was never a big fan of real life, I guess.
Yes.
So
she definitely was a little too willing to stay in her bubble. And I do really like that to sort of dive deeper into her as a character, one of the first things that we learn about her is her relationship with Vera, who coincidentally is also James's mom. Yeah, truly, that is a connection that never would have crossed my mind.
Yeah, I never would have thought it was Vera, especially because everything we hear about Vera is kind of smothered in heartbreak. Like, yes, when they first meet, there's a lot of love there, but then it becomes like a very sad story, I guess. Yeah. And even Clementine calls it the bad parts, right? Like, so I never would have assumed that they still kept in contact.
Definitely, because we even get throughout Clementine's life, Annalea tells her, don't ever fall in love in this apartment, because of the way that she felt so broken up over not being able to have this life with Vera.
Yes.
But I do think that story is so interesting, because basically we see Clementine put in the exact same position as her aunt. Granted, I know that Annalea said that one of the big reasons why her and Vera didn't stay together was because Vera wouldn't have kids, and Annalea didn't. I I don't know. I mean, I don't want to make anyone have kids if they don't want to have kids. But
I think it was more than that, though. I think it was more that Analea was so afraid of finding Vera in real life and realizing that Vera had changed, because 7 years changes you, but then also not wanting to deal with all of that change, like the kids aspect obviously being a part of it, but other things too, I'm sure, similar with Clementine, right? Like not wanting to deal with the fact that James has slightly different dreams, that he is a slightly different person because 7 years changes you, and like that's okay, and it works out for the two of them. But it seemed like at the time Analea couldn't get over that she had this image of who Vera was 7 years in the past, and that was the Vera that she was in love with, and wouldn't move into this new space where, yes, Vera is a different person, but could she still be somebody that you love? You're just not giving it that opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. So it is kind of nice. I don't know if at any point Clementine exactly reflected on that, but I'm glad that she was more willing to basically do what Analea couldn't.
I think in a way that maybe she did reflect on it a little bit, because I'm pretty sure in the end when she returns Vera's letter to her that Vera sent to Analea, not knowing what had happened.
Yeah.
They kind of have that conversation where Vera tells her, your aunt was so afraid of change. Like she was so afraid to give this an opportunity outside of the apartment.
Yeah.
So in some ways, I mean, we don't get that narration, but I think surely Clementine would have maybe thought about that or taken it to heart a little bit, and maybe had seen that in her own situation with James.
Yeah, because honestly, especially knowing that she had so much more time to change her mind and be willing to reach out, and seeing if Vera was still interested, which I know that that in itself can feel weird, because the more time that passes, the more,
of course,
it's like, do you still care, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But again, I just think that it's always worth a chance, even if, again, this is not the version of the person that you originally knew. That person is still kind of in some ways in there. And so it's like, why don't you think that you are capable of falling in love with them as well and exploring that sort of thing?
I think it's just easier to, when you're in that position, to fantasize about the best outcome versus risking the opportunity for the worst outcome.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that that's like right, but I think that that's possibly where Analea was coming from.
Right. It's a very human thing to feel.
Yes. And could that also maybe be an aspect of her like mental health? Because surely there was something going on there with her mental health, because as we know, she does die by suicide. So was that also maybe a part of the way she saw the world, and did that affect her? Like, were those some of the demons that Clementine was talking about, recognizing post her aunt's death, like, hey, actually my aunt did have this darkness to her at times.
Right. Yeah, and that's a whole other thing that we haven't even really touched on, is that from early on, obviously we know that her aunt has passed away at some point. And now I'm using both aunt and aunt. But
I've accepted it, honestly.
It is what it is. That's why she's in this apartment to begin with.
Yeah.
But we don't find out till halfway through the book, it seems like, that this is how her aunt dies. And like I said, there obviously, no matter any time someone passes away, there's always going to be grief with it, and it's always going to be hard. And honestly, even no matter the cause, you're always going to have these like what ifs in place. But I do think that there is a very specific type of grief with suicide.
Sure.
And so learning that about it makes all the more sense as to why so present in Clementine's life and why she's thinking about it so often. Not to mention, she's literally in her apartment. Mm-hmm. It was so sad, but I also did really like that we didn't find out till much later in the book and get to learn more about her as a person, because I do think one thing that is unfortunate about suicide, I feel like, is that once you find out that that is how someone's passed away, I think it does become a bit of a mental game of like, why did that happen? And I feel like that does come in the way of getting to understand that this was a real person, and that there was a lot more to her than just the depression that might have been there.
Yeah.
Because we're all people who can experience these feelings, and it doesn't mean that depression was the only thing about us.
Yeah.
So I did love that that was a later reveal, both in just a normal storytelling sense, but also how it fit into how we got to learn about her. I think was really really respectful of this character.
Yeah, and the way that it is eventually revealed to us as well as being something, like you were saying, because we knew her as a person and what she meant to Clementine without knowing about the suicide. So it almost came as a shock, right? Of, oh, wow, she seemed to be living such a big life.
Yes.
Like, she seemed to be so in love with her life. I mean, obviously there were parts that were sad, right, when she would talk about Vera, but it seemed like she loved to travel, she loved to experience things, she loved her niece. So, like what we were saying, why would she, do this? And that never really fully gets answered in the book, but it also seems to mimic the way something like this would happen in real life. You never really know, but like you were saying, there is so much more to that person than that action.
Right, exactly. And just because, we can point to all the things about all the good that was going on in her life, and it doesn't mean that what she was experiencing in terms of depression also wasn't valid, and that those weren't true demons either. So it really does go both ways. I definitely get the way that Clementine feels, especially when we find this package and eventually do open it up and see that it was a travel guide for the next destination that Analea was planning for them.
Yeah.
It definitely does leave, especially too, because even though we say she died by suicide, technically it was like a medication. In some ways, Clementine even admits, like, maybe she did truly accidentally overdose on this and it wasn't intentional. But it does leave things very confusing when you see things like this travel itinerary. And it's like, but she was planning for the future, so how did this happen? But it just goes to show that I think that there can be people who truly are trying to plan for the future, but they just sometimes don't win the battle.
It just kind of sneaks up on you, I think.
Yeah.
Like, you can think that you're doing so well one moment, and then something happens, and, it just sneaks up on you. I think you can make so many plans, and you just don't know. Life happens, and it's hard when you're in that position, and that's something that you're considering. Like, it's a really tough situation.
Right.
And it's difficult for the people that are left behind to understand.
Yeah. And this is where I don't want to get too speculative about this, but thinking more about, we go back to the apartment scene where Clementine and Analea do meet. Mm-hmm. And it does make you wonder if she kind of understands, like you said, if this magic only really works with, say, specifically the people who live there. And if she's seeing her niece there, then, and especially, well, I guess I don't know, but in theory, she could have a will in place at that moment and know that she has already left it to her. And the fact that there is a bit of this knowledge of, like, I guess that's when I die. Like, there is a bit of that reality that it's it makes you wonder if that's playing in her mind. And, and then it makes you wonder more about what they talked about. I don't know. I don't want to
see, isn't this the situation can you imagine this being the situation that Clementine is in, right? When she, discovers that this is something that has happened with her aunt and living her life over the last 6 months. So this whole spiraling that we're doing, it's wild to think that this is probably where Clementine was also coming from.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just, it's a whole situation that we'll never really fully understand. But also, regardless of whatever happened in that meeting, the fact that they had a final meeting, a final situation at the end of the book, not when Clementine wanted it the most and would have probably, tried to get answers from her aunt, maybe would have spoiled something about how her aunt dies.
Right.
I think it's really important that we get it at the end when Clementine not necessarily no longer wants it, but is more mature now to accept the fact that this has happened and this will happen, and I'm just going to enjoy this moment.
Right, exactly.
What a way to end the summer of love.
Truly. It has been such a good summer of love. I have enjoyed it so much. It's been kind of a reprieve after quite a heavy-hitting beginning of our podcast season. But with that being said, I am actually really excited to jump into the future of what we're about to do and get into some new genres again. And I think actually we're going to go back to our roots a little bit.
Yeah.
And get into some fantasy by...
As we do.
Yes, by reading The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. Mm-hmm. I don't know if y'all can see. For the YouTube viewers, this is on my computer screen roughly what it looks like. It's a black picture with the title on it with some stars. It's very cute. If you want to get an idea of what this book is about, this is what the back of the book summary says. France, 1714. In a moment of desperation, a young woman makes a Faustian bargain to live forever and is cursed to be forgotten by everyone she meets. Thus begins the extraordinary life of Addie LaRue, and a dazzling adventure that will play out across centuries and continents, across history and art, as a young woman learns how far she will go to leave her mark on the world. But everything changes when, after nearly 300 years, Addie stumbles across a young man in a hidden bookstore, and he remembers her name.
So we have a little bit of like time traveling, a little 300-year slip going on here.
Yes, honestly. What a good transition book for the content that we're doing. Yeah, very intriguing. It's also, I was kind of expecting a bit of a longer back of the book summary, but I don't mind knowing a little bit less because I kind of like going in a little blind into these books sometimes. And it is like a standalone fantasy as well. So even though it is fantasy, it's not like if anyone's watching and it's like, I don't know if I want to get into that. It's not like you're jumping into like a whole series that you have to now dedicate your life to.
Yes.
And I've heard only great things about this book. So I'm really excited.
So make sure you guys join us on Tuesday, September 23rd. As we once again travel through time and space, us and Addie LaRue and this mysterious man that seems to remember her, whose
and of
name
course
that we
there's
don't
a
know
bookstore,
yet.
baby.
Yes. So make sure to mark your calendars for Tuesday, September 23rd for that. And just in case you are still a little bit sad about the end of Summer of Love, we do technically have one more off-the-shelf Summer of Love episode coming out September 9th, where we're going to be talking about our favorite boys and our favorite toys of books as a whole. Thanks for listening to the latest episode of our hit podcast, Read Receipts with Carly and Sam. All of the content that you hear in the podcast is curated, recorded, and edited by us truly, with special thanks to the authors of the books that we cover and Pixabay for the music that we play. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you like to listen, and for more of our content in between shows, you can follow us at the Read Receipts Pod on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. We love to see new followers join us on social media. We love to see you like our posts and comment under them. So please, please, please make sure to head over there and follow along. Until our next read, bye!